Today we're looking at something a little bit special. We're hopping into an old time machine and we're heading back to old Badham Preschool. Look at the map, it looks completely different to what we were playing against now. Old textures, old lighting, old atmosphere. It's totally different and it feels so much more atmospheric and scarier. We're playing Old Spirit back when she was an actual nightmare to play against, and I want to see if she can still hold up and dominate on one of the most survivor-sided maps, Badham Preschool. Take a look at this, the lighting, the textures. This is Badham Preschool as it used to be. For some of you, this is where your journey started in the fog, and for others, this is a nightmare. You're lucky that you missed it. I'm looking back at this game that I played when I was on Old Spirit before she had got reworked. Back when she was the undistributed queen of the meta, and this map was a survivor playground. There's something about the old atmosphere just felt different, grittier. Let's get into it. The first thing you notice about old Badham is the loops. The houses, that was just a building. It was a huge fortress for survivors. It was filled with windows and it was filled with pallets, and it was a very, very good loop. If a survivor knew what they were doing, you could easily go a full 5-gen chase. It was very strong. Just trying to keep a single pallet out the way, and as Spirit, you really had to rely on your ears because the grass, the creaking on the floor, didn't move the way it does now. It was pure guesswork and instinct. There was a few errors and bugs in old DBD. There was a silent bug that we kind of still have now, and it was still present back in those days. The first thing that you'll see is Spirit herself. This was before a directional phase sound, so if you were in the terror radius of the Spirit, you would not be able to hear her phasing towards you. She would just appear next to you and you wouldn't know unless you were near grass or if you heard the floorboards creak when no one was there. Survivors had no idea where she was standing or phasing to, and she could be right behind you. It was very powerful back then, and it was very overpowered. She was the strongest console killer back in the day, but on a map like this, you needed every bit of it. Every phase felt like a gamble because it's such a big map. You're listening for that one breath that you phase past and hopefully bump into a survivor or at least into some scratch marks. That one footstep in the basement of the preschool. Right there, see that? A tiny scratch mark that shouldn't be there. That's the nostalgia for me. The hunt felt more like a game and hide and seek than a frantic chase. It was a very dark map, so it was easy for survivors to hide at the corner of the maps or even behind a bush. There was so many places to hide back then, and the scale of the old maps made it 10 times harder for killers to get around, especially Spirit with her phase. Unless you have duration add-ons, then it was very difficult to get around the map, since she's also a slow walking killer. Same speed as Hag. Look at the old TADs, the old grass house textures, no hook counters, no hook camping status progression. It's just pure, simple and basic. You had to keep a mental map of everything. Who you hooked, how many times. Unless you wanted to tunnel and you didn't really care, then otherwise you would have to keep count of everything, including exhaustion perks. Most people would use Dead Hard anyway. Who's running Decisive Strike, who's running Sprint Burst, etc. Because back then, DS was totally different. You could touch a generator, heal someone, progress the game in any way, and you would still keep that DS from Laurie Strode, which meant that if you gen grabbed someone, you could still get decisive strike when you weren't purposely tunneling them. You didn't just play the game, you played against the survivors' imaginary second lives. The game starts to slow down. I'm starting to get the rhythm of the map. Even though the place was a maze, there was a beauty to the old lighting. The way the moon hit the fog, it's a bit more horror than the modern, cleaner version of DBD we have today, because there's newer textures and the lighting is totally different as well. So there isn't that scary atmosphere anymore, and that was to help the killers see where the survivors are and make it harder for survivors to stealth. I miss the mystery of not knowing exactly what was around the corner. We ended up pulling off this win, but looking back, the results doesn't even matter as much as the feeling. DBD has changed so much, from the textures, the lighting, the fog, the atmosphere in general, the music, the animations. It's all changed. Some for the better, some for the worse, but these old clips remind me why I bought the game in the first place. It wasn't about the meta back then, it was about the atmosphere and the feeling of playing together or solo. It was a totally different game back then. It's such a huge map, you can use a whole phase and still not reach the end. Look at the size of the school. If you think Badham now is tough, you have no idea. These windows were infinite, you could literally grow old and retire before a survivor ran out of places to vault. Or run out of pallets as well. But that's the nostalgia. Everything's a bit broken, a bit more chaotic, and a bit more fun as well, honestly. Since it was strong for both sides, you can have a lot more fun. Now, the part that I miss the most about Old Spirit is the standstill mind games. They're just so funny. I could literally just stand here and they'll think that I'm phasing for them. But actually I'm just standing still, and you can never tell because there was no indicator really, apart from an animation change and maybe the grass moving by itself. They'll literally panic and they'll just vault right into me. It's so funny. 3 gens left and I'm flying. The pressure on old Badham Preschool was insane. You had to be everywhere at once. But look at this phase. I'm travelling halfway across the map, catching them off the heel. This is why Spirit was feared. You can never be safe. Not even at a God palette. Not even at Shack palette, which you'll see later in this game. Not in the basement, not anywhere. We're at endgame now. The gates are powered, the tension is through the roof. We're at endgame now, and there's only one survivor left. We finally caught him, and he's a W gamer. He likes to run, so I can't do the standstill mind game on him, because he knows he's very smart, like normal ace players are. Looking back at the game, it was a bit of a mess, but it was such a characteristic game. So much detail, so much thought put into it. I hope you guys enjoyed this little trip down memory lane. If you want to see more old DBD gameplay, you can hit the like button. Thanks for taking this little trip back to old Badham with me. If you remember this version of the map, tell me about your horror stories in the comments. I'll see you back in the Modern Fog next time.